A Cat That Really Was Gone. A story by Big Grug. Chapter 3. He squinted his eyes a little from the sudden flash of light. A screen in front lit up from his touch. He had ended up guessing on the button to activate it. An educated guess, of course. It only took several tries for every cylinder to respond and boot up. Russian danced across the screen, reading the status of the base. Bulkheads, offline. Sensory equipment, offline. Security backup, offline. Surveillance, offline. He didn't need to read the rest. Power was completely gone. The panel in front of him only spared due to being directly hooked up to the radioactive power source. There was only one way to know how bad the damage was. The readouts finished with a final query. Plutonium core, active. Initiate facility restart. He confirmed with a button press. The screen went dark, once again leaving him in nothingness. His mind raced again, searching for alternatives to the power situation. He could leave. It would take a while, and with hundreds of miles of ice and snow, even he might not make it. White light bathed his contemplating form, clearing his thoughts of backup plans. Functioning facilities. He read through the parts of the base that were still running. Perhaps he could repair the ones that were offline, if he stayed here. No one was around, and he had been in cryo. There was no telling how long he had been asleep or what happened to the surface. For all he knew, the world gave up and nuked itself. Then the light flicked on. Massive clangs resounded from above him, with electricity shooting once more through the undamaged systems. He was lucky there was not a fire from the years of neglect. Attention switched back to his station. A diagram of the reactor displayed with statistics of predicted output and lifetime values. 50 millimeters of lead stood between him and the core, protection against the radiation. Scratching his earlier thought, there was a way to figure out how long he'd been here. Roughly, given that the station was built relatively close to the usage of plutonium, he could say that it was at 100% efficiency. The half-life was around 87 years, and the efficiency currently read 54%. There was room for error and increased energy usage, but the rough estimate gave him a minimum of 20 to 30 years. A lot could change in that time. Nations could fall, regimes could rise. If he were to get out, he needed information. Waking up in a neglected facility meant that he had been forgotten, so it was safe to say whatever he was made for was over. Which meant he had no purpose. His head hurt again. Not the physical pain, like taking a round to the skull. The inside pain. The one he hated the most. The one father always gave him. His eyes clenched harder, his jaw set in stone. He cleared his mind. No distraction. Focus. There is always purpose. He had found power. Things were online. He needed to prepare now, for anything and everything. He would settle back into his routines, no longer needing permission to access the armory or experimental equipment. Hopefully that was powered back up now. It could be very useful. If not, no big deal. Violence is usually the answer. He looked back up the ladder. It was well lit now, showing just how far it went. It would be a long climb. He looked down as well, the whooshing from the reinvigorated system breezing his naked form. He would need to get clothing and equipment as well. Adrenaline coursed through the once frail and vulnerable body of Dr. Christina. She moved fast, feeling the soft grip of the plasma pistol she knew the general carried at all times. Many she worked with kept their sidearms at all times, making it a habit, just to be safe. Lada knew weapons. She worked on them quite a lot. She saw how theirs worked, plasma and lasers from science fiction novels. Still, they had triggers and sights. Instead of semi, burst, and full auto, they used levels of intensity. She withdrew the weapon with her learned sleight of hand and launched an invisible shot into the belly of her friend. Lada knew it was on the lowest setting, feeling the switch with her thumb. She didn't know how much between the two extremities did what, but she knew one thing as she wiped the lever all the way up. Full charge meant kill. At first, she knew what had to be done. As many had done before her, suicide was the best way to deny intel. This time, she had no cyanide tooth. The blaster would work. She almost acted on killing herself until she realized the issue. They knew of the archives. They'd turn this place inside out to find it if she killed herself. It was a risk, but she had to take it. She had to burn it all. The two agents were on both sides of the door, right behind Bosenia. Humans did have better reaction time and speed compared to the Shivanti, but 2 against 1 is hard to beat. The reaction time difference was also in milliseconds. General Bosenia was still stunned, back-facing the two agents with a mouth agape. She let the large Amazon obscure their vision, making use of her small profile as she switched to a shooting position. Lada knew they came expecting a frail nerd of a weak race. Didn't even bring armor, probably to calm her and the general down, which made this all the more easier. Just like that, she was back in Vimpel, Belarus, her training station. The mind shifted back to a darker times, the movement drilled into the woman for years. Sergeant Ivan saw to that. Hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, and most importantly, insurgency. How to overthrow a superior enemy with limited resources. How to convert a populace. That was before she became a top researcher, her position in Vimpel landing her a spot in the government. Bosenia never questioned how she knew how to calm civilians down after just being invaded, which she was thankful for. Never asked exactly how she got the attacks to stop, and why some people were a whole lot friendlier after a visit from Lada. Bosenia was truly one of the good ones, the bright-eyed dreamers you saw from time to time in command. Shame it had to end like this. Shiev had been paying close attention to the words between the two, just in case she said something of use to the general. As soon as she heard an apology and the commander suddenly stood stiff as a board before beginning to slump, alarms rang in her head. She squinted her eyes while reaching for her waist. She took one step before the general fell in front of her. She barely had time to register the plasma pistol pointed right at her. A small whir and flash of blue came from the hand blaster. Charged ultraviolet light slammed into Shiev, melting her winter clothes immediately. Cloth boiled into the purple skin, hot plasma dispersing across her stomach flesh while churning deeper into the torso. A second shot came right after, rocketing the alien to the side in shock. She leaned against the wall, hyperventilating from the sudden impact before a final round impacted her ear, lancing electromagnetic waves through the now hot brain of Shiev. Her legs gave out, dropping into a heap. Dura hadn't really been paying attention. She just wanted to go home, get these stupid waterworks out of the way. She was tapping her foot, looking into the distance so she didn't accidentally look at and set off the general. The loud reverb of a plasma pistol on full charge, that got her attention fast. Instinct and training took over as she reached for a holster with her standard carry. But Lada was faster. She'd drilled this hundreds of times. Her aim might be a bit off from age and unfamiliarity, but her brain was on autopilot. 2 more shots emanated from her pistol, melting the shocked hip of the Shivanti before she could even clear her leather. The agent tumbled, causing the second shot intended for her chest to slide into her neck. Purple flesh burnt and tore, her open esophagus squeezing for air as none came. She too collapsed, leaving a stunned Bosenia at her feet. Lada was glad the wounds cauterized. She had heard too many death rattles from slit throats in her time. The wheezing and staring of the dying Shivanti was hardly any better, but at least it didn't bring up too many memories. Bosenia was still stupefied. The stun hurt like a bitch, and she still gave a twitch every now and then.
Lada...
she whimpered out, her face refusing to cooperate with her.
I am sorry, Bosenia. I really am.
Her face was stone. excluding a single stream running down the doctor's eye. She stepped over the paralyzed alien, slipping through the door. She heard a few clanks of the strange human shoes before they paused and became normal footfalls that faded into the night.